as we all know, we'll continue to have conversations about tragedies of people dying in the Channel until we change our policies. I don't know how many deaths it will take. I think if you looked back to 2016, when the body of a 3-year-old Syrian child called Alan Kurdi washed up on a Greek beach, and it was all over the front pages of the newspapers around the continent. And I'm sure that many of your viewers will remember that picture of him in his little red T-shirt lying on that beach, and how much it broke our hearts. If you had told us then that just 10 years later, 76 people drowning in the Channel in the course of 1 year would have become so normalized that we're talking about it in terms of numbers, not even names, not even faces, not even real people, I think we'd have been horrified. I think we'd have been shocked. I think we'd have said, we'll never allow that to happen. But we have. And I think that we need to recognize how far we've come in order to change course now.
I remember that well, and I can see you get very upset by this. This is an area that you're incredibly passionate about. And I want to ask you about why we're seeing a big uptick since Christmas Day, it seems. I think there's been 1,500 migrants crossing the Channel in this Christmas period alone. Why are we seeing more people? What's the reason behind this?
It's very simple, and it's always the same reason. It's the weather. In the run-up to Christmas, there was terrible weather in the Channel. There was storms and people couldn't cross. And now there's been calm, and so people are trying to cross. And we spend billions and so much political capital and so much political energy on trying to affect this. And we say, you know, governments have run and governments have fallen off the back of whether or not they can affect this. And the real thing, the only thing that actually matters is the weather, because ultimately some people need to come here. We need to be part of the solution of what migration is. You know, people are pushed to migrate, to escape from danger, and the UK needs to be part of the solution to that. And it's not going to change with smash the gangs instead of stop the boats, and it's not going to change for anything except a storm. I mean, this is how pathetic the government policy really is. And I would love for, you know, government ministers to be asked this question: why is it that it's just a storm that can stop people from crossing, but your policies do not stop people from crossing, but they have increased deaths? This government's policies have led to the increase in deaths that we have seen.
Let's talk about those policies and get your thoughts on them now, because we know that there is a new Border Security Command plan in place. We've heard the government talk about cracking the gangs, smashing the gangs. I mean, what is wrong with that policy, in your opinion? And more importantly, what should they be doing?
Well, it treats the gangs as though they're the root of the problem. But of course they're not.
They're not?
Well, no, of course not. What was Alan Kurdi fleeing from? He was fleeing from the horrific war in Syria and the horrific crimes of the Assad regime. As long as those crimes continue to happen, then the truth is people do need to move. And most people don't move as far as the UK. Far from it. Most people stay far away from us. A very small proportion of people even ever make it to Europe, and a smaller still proportion are trying to come to the UK, but some are, and they are willing to risk their lives and die for that possibility. And you know as well as I do that in 5 years from now, we can have smashed the gangs all we liked, but if there is still war in Sudan and there is still the Taliban in Afghanistan, then the UK will still be a destination for safety for some of those people. And if we still keep treating the gangs like they're the root of the problem, then we can arrest one and another one will take their place.
Yeah, we heard earlier that these gangs are decentralised, and when one goes, another one pops up. And when there's a market, there'll always be demand for it. But what is your answer? Is it to let everybody who's a potential asylum seeker come and live in the UK? Is that what you would like to see happen?
Well, I think that when you talk about letting everybody come here, it sounds very scary and overwhelming. But if you actually...
Well, for some it is. I mean, for some people it is.
Well, that's why I'm keen to respond to that, because if you actually look at our migration needs in this country, We are an aging population. If you take away migration, we're a shrinking population. So many of us are getting older. And if we want to maintain the support that we have for pensioners in this country, we want to be able to pay pensions. We want to be able to support people to heat their homes, to get the social care that they need and the health care that they need. We're going to have to continue to bring in immigration. At the current time, we go out and we actively recruit for immigrants to come from all around the world in order to fill those roles. But at the same time, we have such deadly borders for the people who are desperately in need to come here that they die week in, week out in the channel. Now, surely we have the capacity to arrange our immigration system better so that we make use of the resource that is coming to us in the form of these refugees, and we help them and we integrate them into our communities and we support them so that they can be part of that workforce and that tax base that this country simply, objectively needs.
What other country is doing that around the world?
Around the world, you've got to look at lots of different ideas, some of which, but most countries do some things well and some things badly. For example, Spain has a border policy that's just like ours. I mean, horrific numbers. More than 10,000 people have reportedly died this year trying to make it to Spain. So we're talking about a devastating number of people who have died. But if you make it to Spain and you enter their asylum system, you're entitled to work after just a few months. And the Spanish government actually has partnerships with firms that are desperate to recruit more people because, like us, Spain is an aging population and they lack some of the skills they need in some parts of their workforce. So they actually have, programs to train up and feed these asylum seekers into the workforce in places and in jobs where there is need for that labor. So that makes a lot more sense than our system, where we leave people in limbo in these hotels, which have become sites of, a lightning rod for the hatred in our society, and we don't allow them to work, and we keep them there in limbo for, on average, about 2 years.
I'm glad you mentioned those hotels, because I was looking at just some Home Office figures which were published in the beginning of November this year. And apparently from 2023 to 24, the UK government spent £3 billion on housing asylum seekers. And I suppose a question many people will ask, and I'm sure you've heard this many times before, is as a country, can we afford it?
Well, we don't have another option. I mean, leaving people destitute on the street is also expensive in the end as well. What we have to ask ourselves with this is, out of those people who are being accommodated in hotels, for example, we know that there are 6,500 Syrians. What is the ultimate outcome for those Syrians from that process? We all know it. They're going to get refugee status. We're not sending anyone back to Syria for now. So why on earth are they in hotels, not allowed to work? Why on earth is the government incapable of processing their applications and granting them a humanitarian status so they can get on with their lives and get out of those hotels and we can stop paying for it? This is like, it was weaponized incompetence from the last government. This government, I can't understand. What is it that is stopping them from getting a grip on this situation?
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, Zoe Gardner.